I was driving home a bit earlier than usual, just as the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting everything in a soft golden light. The streets looked calm, serene, almost like a moment frozen in time. I remember thinking how beautiful and quiet everything seemed. As I turned onto our street, I noticed a car parked a few houses down. It didn't ring any bells, but I didn't dwell on it until I saw her. My wife was standing beneath the street lamp, and she wasn't alone. A man stood close to her, far too close for comfort. They weren't speaking. He had his arms around her, and her head was resting against his chest. My chest tightened. I tried to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe it was a friend, someone she trusted. Maybe a cousin. But the way she looked up at him, calm, soft, smiling, told me everything I didn't want to believe. That wasn't the expression you give a relative or a friend. That was intimacy. I pulled over, parking behind a car far enough not to be seen. And I watched. He bent down and kissed her. Slowly, deliberately, like they had all the time in the world. She didn't pull away. She kissed him back. It wasn't hurried or secretive. It was open, unashamed, meaningful. I felt sick. My stomach twisted, and my hands went cold on the steering wheel. I didn't know what to do, whether to get out, yell, or just disappear. I sat frozen, my breath shallow and shaky. Eventually, they separated and walked in opposite directions. She headed home. I waited, gathering whatever was left of my composure. By the time I entered the house, she was already in the kitchen, acting like everything was perfectly normal. She smiled, asked about my day. I just stood there, staring, trying to read her face. There was no sign of guilt, not even a flicker of hesitation. I didn't say a word that night. I barely touched my food. I nodded and pretended to listen as she talked about her day. When we went to bed, I turned away from her. My mind couldn't let go of the image I'd just witnessed. Her in his arms. That kiss. Her ease. Sleep didn't come. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw them together. I kept hearing the silence of that moment under the streetlight, like it had carved itself into my bones. I wanted to wake her up and demand the truth. Force her to explain. But I stayed quiet. Morning came, colder than usual. She moved around the kitchen humming softly as if everything was fine. I just watched her, unable to believe how composed she looked. I couldn't bear the difference between her peace and my unraveling. She finally noticed my silence and asked if something was bothering me. I looked at her for a long moment. She seemed unsure for a split second, maybe even slightly anxious, but didn't press. I asked, "Did you go out last night before I got home?" Her eyes flickered briefly. "Just for a walk," she said. "I needed some fresh air." I nodded slowly. "Did you see anyone?" She hesitated just a beat too long. "No." "Why?" I didn't respond. I just kept looking at her, hoping somehow that she'd come clean on her own. But she didn't. She smiled, shrugged, and walked away, leaving me in the deafening quiet. Later that morning, I called in sick. I sat in the living room, doing nothing, barely even thinking, just feeling the weight of everything. Questions swirled in my head. How long had it been happening? How often did they meet when I was at work? Around midday, I picked up her phone. It was locked. That alone said enough. She never used to lock it. Still, I didn't confront her. Not then. Instead, I started packing. Just a small bag. I needed to get away, breathe somewhere else. When she came home that evening, I told her I was leaving for a few days. She looked confused and asked why. I answered, "Because I know." That's all I said. Her face went pale. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't try to deny anything. She just stared at me, speechless. I walked out and stayed at a friend's place that night. Sleep was hard to come by there, too, but at least the air wasn't thick with lies. The next morning, she sent a long message. She admitted it. Said it had started a few months ago. Claimed she didn't intend for it to happen, that she still loved me. But things had changed. I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. Because whatever love was supposed to be, it wasn't that. It wasn't something that looked so much like betrayal. By sunrise, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't numb. I wasn't broken. I was just clear. I knew I couldn't stay in that house. I couldn't live beside someone who held another man so close, just a few doors away from everything we'd built together. That morning, everything changed.